guys ready? I guess the Congressman Nadler is on his way.
Yeah, cool. Great.
But we'll go ahead and get
All the
started.
important people are here, though. Come on.
Exactly. Thank you guys for doing this. Yeah, this is good.
This is great.
Good.
It's Groundhog Day. I'm starting to feel like Charles Komenoff.
Good. Okay.
Gotta have fun out here. Jesus. I'm not
All right. Are we ready? Okay, good morning. We are here to talk today about how to protect the subway and the New Yorkers who ride it. I want to talk briefly about three things. First, Donald Trump's threats to cut funding to the MTA are illegal and bogus. Second, history shows that denying the MTA money will only exacerbate crime and make New Yorkers less safe. And third, a real subway safety plan requires ending street homelessness for people with serious mental illness, not just sweeping it around, as Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, and Donald Trump all propose to do. So first, let's be clear. Trump's threats are both illegal and entirely bogus. The federal government owes the MTA $2 billion in federal formula funding, and US DOT and Donald Trump and Elon Musk and whoever else they trot out, they do not have the legal authority to withhold funding based on fake new rules that they make up. And let's be clear, subway crime data has been public for years. It is already public today. This is all just pretext to wreak havoc with New York, much like Trump's illegal attempt to reverse congestion pricing and deny $15 billion that we have secured to make the subway more efficient, more accessible, and safer. The first investments of that $15 billion that New Yorkers see will be subway platform barriers that keep people from getting pushed, will be new station gates that cut down on fare evasion, in addition to the longer-term investments that are so critical in elevators that make stations accessible and signal modernization that helps the trains come on time. Second, history shows denying the MTA money would only exacerbate crime and harm New Yorkers. And we've seen this in the long history that we all go back in on the subway. Back in September of 1979, the subway system experienced approximately 250 felonies a week, around 13,000 felonies annually, making the subway notorious for being then a crime-ridden mass transit system. And at the same time that crime wave hit, the 1970s fiscal crisis led to deferred maintenance, creating track fires, power outages, and decrepit equipment. How did all that happen? Well, the federal government withdrew funding that the city's subway system relied on. Ronald Reagan sought to end federal support for transit operations and further decreased all federal spending on transit, and the results were not surprising. Service continued to decline, and crime numbers stayed high. The combo of crime and crappy service in the 1970s led to a downward spiral of anemic ridership, revenue losses, and New Yorkers' fears. Thankfully, in the decades that followed, things turned around, and by the 2010s, the MTA had made its way up, with transit ridership reaching an all-time high in 2019, with almost 1.7 billion total rides, and crime went down significantly to only 935 violent index crimes in that year. Unfortunately, that was at the same time that then Governor Cuomo mismanaged MTA finances, raiding hundreds of millions of dollars in funds that had been designated for bus and subway improvements, creating new budget caps that caused the summer of hell and diminished subway service. And then Cuomo cut another $261 million from the MTA's operating budget. Then, as you all know, the pandemic hits, And we see felony assaults and homicides rise to their highest levels since 1997. Last year in 2024, the system recorded 573 felony assaults and 10 murders. What we need to do to make the subway safer is invest in it and end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness. On investing in the subways, what we have here today is the coalition of advocates and strap hangers and public servants who fought tirelessly through all those decades to rescue the MTA from the brink of financial collapse by making congestion pricing a reality and building a broad plan to invest the capital needed in the subway system to deliver high quality service, to modernize the signal systems, to make our stations accessible, and to invest in the fare gates and platform barriers that help make it safer. And so I want to salute all of them, and you're going to hear from some of them in just a minute, as the folks who have done the hard work to win the investments in the subway that make it efficient, that make it accessible, that make it safe. And you all know this because you're reporting it now every day, but congestion pricing has been such an important part of making that work. Data since the cameras have been turned on show that traffic is down with 1 million fewer vehicles entering the most congested parts of Manhattan since January 5th. Trip times have surged to anywhere from 10% to 40% faster. And the city has seen a surge in subway ridership, growing by 7.3% on weekdays and 12% on the weekends over the year before. That is the congestion pricing dividend: more investment in the subways, more riders on the subways, less traffic for New York City. Congestion pricing has become our city's best tool for funding those essential upgrades to the subway system. And if history shows, those subway investments will continue to bring improved service and bring down crime. Governor Hochul and the MTA know this, and we're encouraged by their strong defense of the congestion pricing program. And the legislature knows it as well, and we are counting on Albany to deliver the capital that makes it possible to move forward with the investments in the subway system that will continue to improve it and make it safe. But of course, that is made much harder by illegal and bogus threats from Washington that threaten as a pretext to take funding away from the MTA that the federal government does not have the legal authority to do, and that just serve to rattle sabers. Finally, a real subway safety plan requires ending street homelessness for people with mental illness, not just sweeping it around, as Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, and Donald Trump are all proposing. I want to just talk for a minute about the homeless sweeps that we just got new data that 3,500 homeless people were displaced in recent months to temporary, from the places that they were sleeping. But the data is stunning. Fewer than 5% even went into shelter for one night. 95% of people just moved to a different location on the subway or on the stoops of the buildings or on the streets of our neighborhoods. And out of those 3,500 people, 0 of them got connected to permanent housing. Nearly 80% of the places where the sweeps took place were places that had been swept before. So all that is being done is to move people from place to place, from subway to street, to hospital to jail, and back again, failing to actually address the problem and get people off the subways, off the streets, into housing and services in a way that'll make them safer and keep our subways safer. There is, of course, an essential role for police officers to play in keeping the subways and our streets safe. There is, of course, a role for involuntary hospitalization, and I support efforts to make that somewhat more flexible so that when people are a danger to themselves or others, they can get the care that they need. But let's be clear, the only way to have folks who are mentally ill and homeless not riding the rails, not on the subways, not on our streets. Ultimately, is to connect them to housing with services. That's what Housing First policies do, like they have in Denver and Salt Lake City and Houston. It is not what Housing Last policies do, and that's what Donald Trump is doing, trying to destroy the resources, not just for the subways, but for the housing and services that get folks off it. And that's what politicians do, who put housing last rather than put it first as part of an essential plan to make our subways safer. So you're going to hear today from a great elected official who I'm going to introduce in a moment, and then to several of our great public transit advocates, again, about why these Trump threats are illegal and entirely pretextual, and about why history shows investing in the subways is what makes them safer. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of the great champions for federal funding for transportation. He has rightly become known for his leadership in support of constitutional democracy, and his role as the chair of the Judiciary Committee. But I think of him first and foremost as a transit advocate and a transportation advocate, because as he was rising up in Congress, he was not only rising up in the Judiciary Committee, but on infrastructure and transportation as well. Someone who, long before others were, was talking about the need for more attention to cross-harbor rail freight, and someone who always has been fighting for the investments in mass transit, in our subways and buses that New Yorkers need, a great champion on congestion pricing, a great champion on the large-scale projects of federal funding that have been critical investments, and a great champion of federal funding for the MTA. And at this moment, when Donald Trump is every day making assaults on constitutional democracy, and now making assaults on our mass transit system, honestly, there will be no better person in the whole country to talk about the critical connection to fighting to preserve New York City's investments in mass transit as part of preserving the democracy that it all rests on. And therefore, it is my great delight to introduce Congressmember Jerry Nadler.
Thank you, Brad. I think that introduction was probably almost as long as my remarks. Good morning to everyone. Thank you to Comptroller Brad Lander for gathering us here, and to my fellow elected officials and advocates who have taken to the streets today to send a clear message to President Trump. New York supports congestion pricing, and it's working. Let me be clear. These attacks on congestion pricing are an attack on New York's sovereignty. New York has the right to govern itself, to implement policies that improve the lives of its residents, and to make decisions that benefit our infrastructure and our economy. Congestion pricing has undergone extensive environmental review. It has grown increasingly popular since being implemented in January. It has withstood a barrage of litigation in the courts and has been upheld every time. President Trump can't stop losing in court, and he knows he will lose again over congestion pricing. That's why he and his reality star-turned-transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, want to strong-arm us by threatening to cut funding for the MTA instead. Never mind the fact that the Federal Highway Administration already granted approval to congestion pricing. The notion of revoking approval for a federal initiative of this magnitude is nearly without precedent. I firmly believe that there is no legal basis for the Trump administration to unilaterally halt this program. The value pricing program is solidly established under federal law, and its approval cannot be arbitrarily revoked, especially when it is clearly delivering tangible benefits. Simply put, congestion pricing is no different than New Jersey's ability to set tolls on the New Jersey Turnpike.
That's right.
And let's talk about crime, since Trump and his allies love to fearmonger about New York's subway system. Governor Hochul has already funded 2 police officers on every train overnight. The NYPD, not the MTA police, not the state police, is responsible for policing the subways, and they've been doing their job. Crime in the subway has been trending down in New York City, and the numbers prove it. But of course, Sean Duffy wouldn't know that. The bottom line is this. Congestion pricing is making New York better. We know it works. It's cut down traffic, and commuting times into the city are dramatically faster. Less traffic brings with it faster emergency response times, which means lives saved, cleaner air, and safer streets. All this while funding MTA accessibility improvements and transit extensions like the 2nd Avenue subway that rely on the funding congestion pricing generates. So to Trump, Duffy, and anyone else trying to derail congestion pricing, get out of the way. This train is staying on the tracks. Congestion pricing will continue. We will fund the MTA, and we will protect the rights of New Yorkers to make decisions about their own city. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman, for those remarks and for your fierce fight for the subways and mass transit in Washington. Now we're going to hear from a couple of the advocates who have built the coalition that fights for mass transit funding, that fought for and won congestion pricing, and that consistently represent the strap hangers and bus riders that are the working people of New York City. We're joined today by folks from Transportation Alternatives, from Riders Alliance, from Reinvent Albany, from Rise and Resist, and a great coalition of advocates. And it is my pleasure to ask Sean Garcia from Transportation Alternatives to come on up.
It's hard to believe we're still here. It's hard to believe we're having these discussions still. We know that this program is working. We know that our streets are safer. We know that congestion has gone down. We know that we're raising money. We know that it's impacting our communities, both in Manhattan and in the outer boroughs, in a positive way. And we're still here having to defend it. And defend it against Trump, who continues to attack policies and practices that are benefiting working people, not just here in New York City, but all over our state and all over our country. It's all part of the same assault against working people, and he's picking the fight with congestion pricing, and we're going to continue our fight back. On a personal note, you know, people will talk about all the great things that congestion pricing are doing, but I live in the congestion relief zone. I live in the Lower East Side. I'm a parent of a 9, soon-to-be 10-year-old. We travel every day to school. She's in 4th grade. We have to cross Delancey and Houston to get to her school. And prior to congestion pricing, you know, in the aggressiveness of you know, cars that are trying to get onto these bridges and on these drives has been scary for me as a parent and for my child who's thinking about, you know, eventually having to walk to school by herself. And with congestion pricing, that's changed. Our conditions on our streets have changed. We feel way safer. People are respectful of whoever's going through the corridor. Whether you're driving, you're a pedestrian, you're a cyclist, everyone feels safer on our streets. And it's the first day of spring, which is hard to believe. Happy spring equinox. But we know, too, with the spring comes more people being on our streets, more pedestrians shopping in our shopping centers, more people traveling to our museums and to our other establishments, more cyclists getting on our streets, more cyclists than ever before in New York City's history will be riding in New York City in 2025. And we need to continue to have congestion pricing to not only raise money for the MTA and for other things that we need across the state, but to ensure the safety of all those who are using our streets. Pedestrians, cyclists, people on micromobility. We all need safe streets, and congestion pricing is a great solution in that direction. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks very much, Sean. That reminds me of a line that's attributed to Pablo Neruda. You can cut down all the flowers, but you can't stop spring. And I feel a little like, you know, Donald Trump can cause a lot of harm, but he's not going to stop spring from coming, and he's not going to stop New Yorkers from standing up and fighting for the lifeblood of our city. We won't go back. Yeah. Next up from Riders Alliance is Danny Pearlstein.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with everybody. Such an honor and a privilege to be out here Riders Alliance is New York City's grassroots organization of subway and bus riders and its public transit riders who won congestion relief. We're not giving it up. We're going to court. Our petition to intervene was accepted yesterday. We'll be in court shoulder to shoulder with the MTA and soon the state of New York to defend the program that is improving our quality of life, our safety, and making the critical investments we need in public transit so that it is safe, it is reliable, it is affordable, and it is accessible. You know, in this country, we spend dramatically more encouraging people to drive than permitting people to use buses and trains. Compared to any other wealthy country, we are overinvested in driving cars compared to riding buses and trains, except in New York. Right, and so attacking congestion relief in New York, attacking the meager stream of federal transit funds that come to New York is an attack on New Yorkers' quality of life. It's an attack on our cost of living, on our superpower, which is our ability to get around without paying for a car. And so we take that attack extremely seriously. We are taking it to court. And of course, we're taking it to Albany, right? We're not resting on the laurels of congestion relief. We need more money to continue fixing the subway, to keep us on the path forward toward a reliable, accessible, safe, and affordable public transit system, the one that we need, the one that we deserve, and the one that we will realize because we are organized and doing this all together. Thank you so much.
A couple more speakers, and then we'll take some questions. I know you've got another presser to join shortly. Next up, we'll have Rachel Faust from reInvent Albany, and then Samir Lavingia from Manhattan Community Board 5.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Rachel Foss. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for reInvent Albany. We fight for accountable and transparent New York government, but now I guess we're taking our fight elsewhere. Folks may not know, but the money that is being threatened by the Trump administration, it's actually already been spent. The MTA gets reimbursed by the federal government about $200 million a month. That money goes into capital infrastructure that funds jobs in the state of New York all across the state. New York City and the MTA that helps run the city generate 10% of U.S. GDP. So this attack is actually an attack on the economy of the entire region. It's an attack on a massive tax base that sends money to Washington. So of course we're going to fight back. Just like when Governor Cuomo raided the MTA's dedicated funds, we're doing the same here because this is money that Congress has already appropriated. It's money the MTA has already spent that should be going into the pockets of the MTA transit union workers that are maintaining the subway system. So that's why we're here today, because reInvent Albany supports fighting for home rule for New York City and the sovereignty of our ability to generate money locally. That's why we need congestion pricing. We don't need Washington for congestion pricing. All they have to do is let us raise our own revenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samir Lavingia. I'm the Vice Chair of the Transportation and Environment Committee at Community Board 5, who I'm here to speak on behalf of. Let's be clear, the stakes could not be higher. In 2024, Community Board 5, alongside a number of other community boards in the Manhattan Congestion Relief Zone, penned a letter making it clear that transit improvements that help our district are at risk if congestion pricing is stopped. We have some of the most important infrastructure in the city. We have Penn Station, we have Grand Central, we have Times Square, which have, a lot of improvements coming because of congestion pricing and general funds that are going to go towards the capital plan. The congestion pricing went through decades and decades of planning and approvals. It went through it checked all the check boxes, and the simple truth is that it's the law. On a personal note, I live on 55th and Broadway, and I've noticed that it's quieter, safer, and simply better. There are fewer cars trying to ram into me as I cross the street with my dog, and our constituents of CB5 deserve to keep congestion pricing and deserve to keep the improvements that are coming to our subway system. Thank you so much.
Right, we're also joined by representatives of the New York League of Conservation Voters, of Open Plans, and of Bike New York. Thank you to all the folks who, again, not just for coming out this morning, but for building the coalition that gets our subways invested in, like what has turned New York City around, what has kept our transit system invested in. is the advocacy that you guys have been doing, and New Yorkers are grateful for it. And with that, we will gladly take your on-topic questions.
On-topic question.
What is your understanding of the latest? This deadline, quote unquote, is tomorrow. Washington doesn't physically have the ability to shut this off. But people on the street have been asking them. They can't do that. I mean, they would physically have that ability. And what's your understanding in terms of how a deadline would be enforced?
I mean, the MTA has made clear that the cameras are going to stay on and that congestion pricing is going to continue to operate. The USDOT can file papers in court, but that is my understanding of what their recourse is.
Nothing has I think the letter is February 26th from Mr. Duffy. Has anything, we did some research, we didn't find any other person. Have you heard anything?
I mean, look, this is their, and I don't know if the congressman wants to speak to this. This is their MO right now, is to issue threats and try to bully people into obeying. And that's, I think, what they're trying to do here is just threaten and bully. Again, that's why I gave credit both to the MTA and their chair, Janno Lieber, and to Governor Hochul for making clear we're going to keep making, we're going to keep making the clear arguments for congestion pricing, but they don't intend to turn it off. The federal government doesn't have a switch or a key to the system, and you can't give in to bullies. And look, the same is true with the funding threats. That's largely formula funding on which they can't make up new criteria or rules that didn't exist before. It's without legal basis. It's a pretext for bullying and threats. So I don't know if you really want to say anything to that.
I'll just add that the funding formula is set by Congress, and if they want to change it, they have to get Congress to change it. And let me, since I have the microphone, add one other thing to put something in context. Some of our suburban friends are saying that this is unfair to suburban drivers who are coming in. The fact of the matter is 93% of people from the suburbs, from Long Island, Westchester, Rockland, New Jersey, 93% of those who come into the Central Business District are coming in by train, by mass transit. And so they are being helped by the congestion pricing program. The 7% who are coming in by car are coming in by car, and they're paying $45, $50 a day parking fees. So they're well able to pay the $9. So it's the more well-off people who are coming in by car, who are already paying hefty fees just to park here. We're adding a little to that, and the benefit is going not only to New York City residents, but to the 93% of suburban residents who come in here by mass transit.
And to those 7% who are now seeing substantially reduced travel times as well.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
Council, if you were the mayor today, Sean Duffy's letter came down the pipe, what would your reaction to it be? What would you do as the mayor to, respond in some way, more, I guess, more so than, writing a letter back to him or just saying, well, we're doing what we can?
Well, we're collectively organizing here as New York City's response. New York City, part of our response, working with the state, was the work in advance to make sure congestion pricing went into effect before Donald Trump could become president, so those resources would start flowing. We'd be able to make the investments in the subways. Part of the work that this group is doing is being in Albany, advocating to make sure the resources are in the capital plan that the MTA needs. And part of our work is to stand up and say, these are bogus and illegal threats, and we're going to stand up loud and clear and fight for the subway.